Now, rising prices are hurting consumers and firms like the buy now, pay later platform Klarna. Its credit losses soared in a quarter marked by strong growth. Those results are due in part to the company's aggressive push into the US market. The company's also turned to generative AI to shore up its bottom line, saying the technology helped shrink operating expenses by more than 10%. Sebastian Siemiatkowski is the CEO of Klarna, and he joins us now from Stockholm. Sebastian, great to have you on the show. After that rather alarmist introduction, I think we should talk about the US business in particular, where you are growing at a fast pace. Give us some perspective on what you're seeing on the US consumer.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have seen about 38% growth on a year-on-year basis in the US right now. And actually, gross profit is up almost 100%. So even though those losses, you look there as a kind of a mix because you look at all of Klarna. And because losses in general are slightly higher in the US than Europe, that kind of shifts, it becomes a mix effects that you see there. But I think if you look at the US consumer right now, I was a little bit more concerned around Christmas. I felt that there was a weakening in the consumption spend in the markets, and I felt that some of the Christmas sales were maybe discount driven by the retailers. But since then, we have actually seen a positive pickup in our numbers and see pretty, strong growth. I think also to some degree, obviously, interest rates keeping at a higher rate also means there are interest-free products like buy now, pay later that are entirely out of no interest compared to credit cards are even more attractive. So some of that may still be the shift away from credit cards to buy now, pay later that is also helping accelerate our business.
Yeah, people are spreading the cost. So actually, it might not necessarily be a sign of a stronger consumer or spending. It's simply how they're choosing to pay for these things. Just quickly put those credit losses into perspective, though, as a proportion of the broader loan or borrowing portfolio effectively that you have. What percent are they?
So, I mean, on a global basis, our losses are below 1% on our total volume, right? So in general, you're at about 20-30% below credit cards default rates. And it's because the underwriting, the way the buy now, pay later model works is very different, right? Our outstanding average balance is $100, $150 versus a credit card of $5,500. We don't offer revolving. We don't try to have consumers build up big piles of debt and then charge 20-30% on it. We ask people to pay down in installments, and usually people pay down in about 2 months, all of the outstanding balances. So as a consequence of that, you just have a healthier and more a healthier portfolio, as well as you have an agility to move faster when macroeconomic shifts change. You can very quickly change your underwriting that's happening real time and adjust to new macroeconomic conditions. So it is a more sustainable and more robust credit model than the typical credit card.
Yeah, it's an important point. So with that in mind, is a rate cut or more than one rate cut from the Federal Reserve good or bad for your business? Because do people then shift back perhaps to credit cards if interest rates come down, or once they see your product and like it, they continue to use it? It's sort of a gauge of what an economic cycle does for your business, I guess, which is, it's been tough to see over the past few years.
Indeed. I mean, now we've been doing this business for 20 years, and I've seen it in Europe over a few financial crises and so forth. So actually, the funny thing, it's been growing both when people said, high interest rates are going to be bad for you, low interest rates are going to be bad for you. And since then, it's still been growing because I think it just speaks to, there's an audience, there's a good McKinsey study based in the US that showed that about 20% of the credit card users in the US are what we call self-aware avoiders, people who are very unhappy and disappointed at some of the practices that credit cards have applied to encourage people to put themselves in too much debt. And they're looking for an alternative solution. And this kind of solution is different. And I think it's that audience. So it's more a shift of type of product than necessarily a consequence of interest rates per se.
It's also ability to gauge credit risk, I think, which sort of brings the conversation round to AI. I know you've been quoted as saying over 90% of your staff now are using AI in some capacity, particularly in the sales and marketing department, where I know you've been able to slash costs. Just give us a sense of where this is most useful and is in assessing credit quality of customers, also sort of part of how you're utilizing AI too.
So we're not using Gen AI right now in underwriting. We've used machine learning for a while in underwriting, but in other areas where AI is, I mean, it has a profound and very significant impact on our business. So we announced in February, we launched our customer service chatbot. It basically took over 70% of all customer service errands with higher satisfaction score than human agents, which actually removed the equivalent of 700 full-time employees with the launch of that. Now, in our case, we're outsourcing, and the agencies that we use have hundreds of thousands of employees. So these people simply got jobs with other customers of theirs. But obviously, long term, this will have implications for those kind of jobs. We've also seen tremendous impact on our marketing expenditure, especially in type of producing photos and marketing material and stuff like that. Not the really high quality creative stuff, but more the kind of day-to-day usage. And in general, actually, Klarna has not been hiring since September, October last year. So we are, through natural attrition, shrinking by about 20% on an annual basis. We're going to go from about 4,000 to 3,200 employees this year. And we're simply not hiring because we see that due to these tools, we can do more with less. And we're really leaning into this. What I promised my employees, though, is that we're going to pay more per employee as a consequence of this. So there's something in it for it.
That was going to be my next question, my friend. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the total cost of staff is going to go down, but per employee is going to go up. So there's something in it for them as well. But I think that it is tremendous, and I think we are very, very optimistic in the coming 12 months that there will be continuous opportunities to apply the technology in a way that allows us to become even more fast-moving and agile.
I've got two questions in one now because I've been told I only have one more question. Very quickly, do you think you'll ever hire more people as an entire business than you have today based on what you're saying about AI? Or do you think actually that sort of replacement effect is something that will be sustained? And then the second cheeky question is IPO. Sebastian, what are you thinking on IPO timing?
I was just watching an internal project today where they had basically created an avatar of me so that we could contact all of our large merchants with a personal message from myself. And so I was like, okay, good. So it's not only customer service, also CEOs that can start thinking about what's going to happen eventually to their jobs. I think that unfortunately, this technology has a profound potential impact. Now, I think we as society need to consider what that means, because as much as people have always said, there will be new jobs, and potentially there will be. If you are a 55-year-old translator, you may not retrain to become a YouTube influencer overnight, right? So I think still society should consider how do we support people that may be affected by these changes. But with that said, I don't believe that we will ever become more people again.
Wow. Yeah. So that really means that policymakers have to step up today with plans for retraining and accepting the truth of the massive impact that AI is having. You haven't answered the IPO question, but I think we're out of time, so I'm going to have to reconvene with you on that. We'll speak again. Sebastian, it's always great to have you on. Thank you, the CEO of Klarna there.